Guruve Gaur Sanjaya Radhikaya Tadave Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatruvishcha Kripa Sindhuvayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Dandavat Pranam devotees. So, I have not done a question and answer session in quite a while. Not that it's been so long, but in part because it is Kartik Mas, and I'm concentrating on some things in bhajan life. Also, I'm healing from an injury. It's not a really big thing, but just trying to make sure to try to get healed enough to prepare for Seva upcoming. And also because I've been answering a lot of questions personally. In other words, I've been communicating directly back to those persons and answering their queries. By the grace of Guru and Gauranga, I want to speak about something today which is really, really important. Dandavat Sadhana Siddha Prabhu. So I wanted to speak about something that's really important, and that is intentionality or intentional practice in bhakti, just like the title says. So intentional practice means, in Sanskrit it's explained as sadhana and sadhya. That the sadhana, which is the practice, has to have a goal, and the goal creates intention in the practice. So without a goal, without a clarity of a goal, the practice can become not clearly defined because there's not a clear goal to be accomplished. So any person who's practicing bhakti has to establish, what is my desired goal? So of course it's very easy to understand that, generally people in the material world, once they come to some sensibility regarding their actual selves, means the soul, they understand that the material body is causing a condition which is undesirable. So I've often spoke about what is suffering. And suffering is not really something that's in the Atma, but it's in the vicarious identification with the material world and the misconceptions that allow the soul to identify with the body. So suffering comes as a result of that combination. Just like if you combine certain things together that don't go together, you get an adverse response or an adverse effect from it. So in the same way, the energy of Bhagavan, in terms of his material energy, is not inherently miserable, and neither is the Atma have misery. I've explained many times that Jiva Goswami, in describing the Atma in Paramatma Sandarbha, described Chid Ananda Atmaka. And then in explaining what that meant, he said, one feature is called Dukkha Pratyogita. It means that there is no misery actually in the Atma itself. And even though it is mentioned in Sastra, Dukkalyam Ashashvatam, that from the topmost planet, Abrahmana Bhuvana Loka, right? From the highest planet in the material world to the lowest, all are places of misery. Well, that means based on the identification of the soul by any individual with the material energy. It's not that inherently in those places there's just misery. It's the identification of the Atma with everywhere from Brahmalok all the way down to the lowest planets, identifying based on self-interest and false ego with trying to enjoy. That combination produces the sort of other polarity of the duality, because the material world is dual. Icha dvesha shamutvena dvanva mohena bharata. There's a natural duality in the material world, right? So one part of duality is the attempt to enjoy, and whatever happiness is eked out. Then also it mentions, Prahlad Maharaj mentions, just like happiness comes due to whatever you're destined to receive by your karma, similarly, yata dukkam ayatnaha. So here Prahlad Maharaj says that dukkha or misery arising again from that vicarious connection will come. Ayatnaha means even without endeavor. So that's just the nature of the duality in the material world. But the energy itself is not miserable, nor is the Atma itself miserable. But when we take up the practice of bhakti, because we have been from time without beginning conditioned by that vicarious connection with the material energy, we're experiencing the idea of suffering. And therefore, when people take to the practice of bhakti, generally their original intention is to get free from that suffering, or to get out of the condition they consider is creating that suffering, and therefore their impetus in practice is getting free from suffering. So, at least that is the beginning of establishing a goal. Now, we have to then ask questions, and this is a very big part of intentional practice. Intentional practice is based in questions and answers. So first we can question ourselves. For what purpose have I come to bhakti? And then question, is that the purpose of bhakti? That's one question. For what reason have I come to bhakti? And what is the actual stated purpose of bhakti? So then you have to fill in that gap between what is the actual goal of actual bhakti and what my intention in my practice thus far is. By doing that, that immediately opens up an incredible intentional additive to your practice, because now you have to answer this question. Of course, if you want to ask a question, the best place to get the question resolved, Dandavad Didi, Dandavad. The best place to get a question answered is Sadhu Guru. You understand? So in Bhagavad Gita it's mentioned, Tadvidi Pranipattena Pariprishnena Sevaya. With an attitude of service and humility, we should approach Sadhu Guru to make relevant inquiry. Tajmat Gurum Papajeta Jigyashu Shriyutamam. Again it's repeated. The entirety of Srimad Bhagavatam is questions and answers. Questions posed by Maharaj Parikshit to Shukdev Goswami. Even before Vyasadeva compiled, he asked to Narada Muni various questions, and Narada Muni answered. Sonaka Rishi and the sages at Namashananya, they asked questions to Sut Goswami. Even the Asura, Hiranyakashipu, he asked questions to Prahlad Maharaj that generated answers. They weren't necessarily answers he wanted to hear, but questions and answers gave revelation to what is the purpose of something. So you cannot do intentional practice in bhakti without making relevant inquiries. So let's go back to the original inquiry I brought up. What was my purpose for coming to bhakti? So let's take it that my purpose was, having heard that the material world is miserable, realizing that I've been part of this material entanglement from time without a beginning, I wish to bring an end to that material entanglement and get free from suffering. Again, Bhagavad Gita identifies Chaturvidaya Bhajanti Mam. 4 kinds of people who come to the practice of bhakti. So included in that is Artha, Artati, Jigyashur, and Gyanicha. In other words, those who have suffering, right, who are going through some difficulty, those who want money or to have some material remuneration coming from the practice of bhakti, those who are in distress. So that's also one valid category of people who come to bhakti. Those who are inquisitive, and those who obviously Gyanicha have some knowledge based on previous samskars and are in a continuum of practice in bhakti. But for those who are coming because they're distressed, they want to say, okay, bhakti will satisfy that. Bhakti will remove any kind of suffering. Even the abbas of the practice of bhakti remove any kind of suffering. The question is, what is the actual purpose of bhakti? That's an inquiry. So now if I inquire what is the actual practice of bhakti, we'll have to go to the sources that reveal that information. There's a 3-tier system for that. Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra. And what do they all unanimously declare the purpose of bhakti to be? Anya abhilasita sunyam jnana karma anavritam anukuyena Krishna anusilanam bhaktir uttama. So Rupa Goswami has extracted from all kinds of verses that describe bhakti. Savayapam samparodamo yato bhakti hoksije ahoitaki apratyata yenatma suprasidati. Sava upadi vinayamuktam tatpatena nirmalam vishikesha vishikena sevana bhakti uchade. All these verses describe pure bhakti. But Rupa Goswami having extracted that under the influence of Mahaprabhu, took the essence of all of those verses and gave the conclusive definition. The conclusive definition is that Bhakti has two angles to look at. First is called the extrinsic quality of Bhakti. What is that? Anya abhilasita sunya. So anya abhilas means another kind of desire. So it says anya abhilas sunya. Do not have or be void of any other kind of desire. So here's the first quality of Bhakti. It should be anya abhilas sunya. There should be no other desire. Well, if there should be no other desire, it indicates we can have a desire. Because it's anya, the word anya here means another desire. So it indicates there is a desire which we can have. And in having that one desire, it should not be covered. Anavrita means uncovered. It should not be covered by either gyan or karma. Because in the pursuit of wanting to get free from suffering even, many kinds of karmic activity, many kinds of systems of knowledge will come into play. And so if our primary desire is to get free from suffering, we may resonate or align with so many karmic modalities, so many modalities coming from Gyan. And if they cover Bhakti, then it is not actually the practice of Bhakti. Let me repeat that again. Jnana karmadi anavritam. So Gyan, karma, adi means in anything else that would cover Bhakti will not actually be Bhakti. Therefore, in our pursuit, even if we have the desire to get free from suffering, right, because we haven't really understood the actual purpose of Bhakti, even if it's to get free from suffering, and we look at other modalities, like modalities that are based in some karmic activity, or in Gyan, and the application of some kind of process of Gyan, right? If either one of those things, or adi, anything else, covers what is pure Bhakti, and we're going to get to the intrinsic quality of Bhakti in a second here, if it covers that, then it is not Bhakti. You understand? So now, what is the intrinsic quality of Bhakti? The extrinsic quality or the Tatashta Lakshan has been described. Now, what is the Swarup Lakshan on intrinsic quality of Bhakti? Anukulyena Krishna Anusilanam. So, the one desire that we can have is that all of our endeavors, based from that desire, should be for the Anukul Seva of Krishna. This is the allowable desire if what you're doing is intentional practice of Bhakti. So it means that all of our activities, all of our moods, all of our endeavors, because the word silanam means, the root, verbal root there, seal means endeavors. And the endeavors are of the Chestaru means activity, Karyaru, the activity rather, Chestaru, endeavors, and Bhavaru means emotions or sentiments. So the combination of all of those things, right, your endeavors, the activities born from your body, and those born from your emotions should all be geared towards what will be anukul to the service of Krishna. That is the allowable desire. Therefore, this is pure bhakti. Now we can take a measurement. Where am I in my regard to just wanting to get free from suffering, and where that's aligned with bhakti, as I just described. That anukulyena Krishna anusilanam. So now, obviously, you'll find there's some disparity between the self-interest of my own desire just to get free from suffering and the pure intention of doing everything for the anukul. Anukul means the pleasure is not the actual word, because when there's a deeper description of bhakti, examples are given. So I'll go ahead and explain those two things. One is called ati vyapti dosh. Dosh means fault, ati means excessive. Ati vyapti means, to give a definition, which is permeated by an overextension of the actual meaning of bhakti. An example, if you took the word anukulyena, or Krishna's kalyan means his welfare, to mean only his happiness, well, Krishna was very happy when he was fighting with Charan and Mustika and the wrestlers that were put forward by Kamsala. But can we say, because Krishna was happy, that those wrestlers, Charn and Mustika, Tosala, others, they had bhakti? We can't say that, because their mood was pratikul. It means it was adverse to Krishna. They wanted to kill Krishna on behalf of Kamsa. So that's not bhakti. So we can't say the word anukulyena means only Krishna's happiness. On the other hand, avyakti dosh means to underextend the meaning. So for instance, Mother Yashoda, when she was performing the Damodar Leela, she leaves Krishna on her bedstead. She goes to begin churning to make butter, yogurt, everything. So she's at the churning station. And Krishna comes and he wants to take breast milk. Of course, I've abbreviated the story. And when Krishna's taking breast milk, he's completely happy. But Mother Yashoda, when she notices that the milk is boiling over, she immediately puts Krishna down to go and attend to the milk, and Krishna begins crying and obviously displaying a great mood of unhappiness. So, is it that Mother Yashoda does not have bhakti? No, she's the archetype of bhakti in Vatsalya Prem. She has the highest kind of bhakti in Vatsalya Prem. But her activities were based on Krishna's kalyan. Means what is anukul for Krishna. If she will attend to the milk, she can make so many preparations from that milk. From that milk will come yogurt, butter, ghee. Ghee will go into so many sabjis. So many sweets will be made from that. So it's for Krishna's ultimate welfare. Therefore, this is actual bhakti. So all of our endeavors, anukulyena Krishnanusilanam, should be for the purpose of satisfying Krishna. So now we can take that measurement. Again I'm repeating, my self-interest in getting free from suffering, where is it in the measuring stick to what is that pure bhakti? So now we can inquire from Sadhu Guru, what is the difference? What am I doing as opposed to what is actually pure bhakti? And how do I get to that pure bhakti? When you make these kind of inquiries, the desire to have that kind of bhakti comes about. If you don't inquire, but you settle for the station that you're in, then the actual substance of pure bhakti does not show its reciprocation. And we begin to wonder, I don't seem to be making that much progress in bhakti, according to what I've understood bhakti to be, even after having heard it. Right? It's because we have to practice with that intention. So what is the intentional practice of bhakti? The intentional practice of bhakti begins with understanding. Understanding means artham. What is the meaning of the things that I'm doing? If the artha of what you're doing, the meaning of what you're doing is not there, then axiomatically or automatically, the practice becomes niyamagraha or anustanik. They mean the same thing. It means it becomes ritualistic because there's not substance of understanding there. And because there's not a substance of understanding, it cannot produce an emotional investment from you. It can only at best produce something being done out of duty. Well, I'm supposed to get up to go to Mangalarati. I'm supposed to say Stav and Stuti to my Gurudev when I wake up. I'm supposed to worship Thakurji, to make offerings. But the emotional content, which is part of Silanam, as I explained, Chastarup, Karyarup, Bhavarup, right? The Bhav, and here Bhav does not mean yet Bhav like when Swarup Shakti descends. I'm not speaking about, I'm talking about emotional content is a better word in the practicing or aspiring stage. So the emotional content is not present because everything is being done on ritual. I'm up at a certain time of day, I sing a certain amount of songs, and then I sit down and I'm supposed to chant 16, 30, 25, 32, or 64 rounds, depending on your mantra establishment, right? And in chanting, I'm duty-bound to do this, and I'm trying to get free from suffering, so I've aligned that if I will follow these things, purportedly having some faith in them and following them, that will alleviate me from suffering. In the next life, probably, because still I can attest in this life, I'm having issues, right? So in the next life it'll happen. So then what happens is that actually the samskars from our Judeo-Christian conception start to kick in, and we start to consider simply having faith and going through the motions, so to speak, that will produce the outcome. And whenever I am having enjoyment, it generally comes based really on my perception of sensual activities in the realm of bhakti that are enjoyable. Great kirtan, great prasadam, hanging out with friends. And I can label that hangout as sadhu sangha to dovetail it. So, in this way, the actual emotional content is not deeply moved and invested because artham, the understanding, is not there. Artham leads to a series of things. The meanings are then contemplated. So artham leads to contemplation. Contemplation leads to true meditation. And meditation leads to absorption, and that leads to realization. So meaning, contemplation, meditation, meditation leads to absorption, and absorption leads to realization. So if we don't start with an understanding, it is very difficult to give emotional investment into the practice, and therefore our practice will not be intentional. Understand? So intentional practice means making inquiry. I brought up this point earlier. Making inquiry into what does every single thing mean. We should never have fear that, oh, I'm going to have to ask too many questions. So because I'm asking so many questions, maybe people will be annoyed or people will not be happy with me. We should ask as many questions as can be digested, first of all, because you just don't want to run off a series of questions, but you don't digest the answer. So you want to ask as many questions as you can to alleviate your gap of artham, your lack of understanding, so that you can then employ the true understanding in contemplation, meditation, absorption, etc., as I mentioned, and ask as many as you can, as often as you can. That's why it's always surprising if somebody gives a class or something, and they ask for questions at the end of the class, and there are no questions. Either it should be questions or corrections, because it means you've understood everything, or we'd have to assess that whatever was said was perfect, but then there would be acknowledgement it's perfect because based on what you've understood, yeah, what was spoken was perfect. You understand? But sometimes there's just no emotional investment in the hearing. Yet the basis of bhakti practices, Shravan, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. But because there's not really an investment emotionally in hearing, right, we're duty bound to go to the class, attend it, it's okay. There are other speakers I like to hear from better, etc., right? There's not a participatory emotional investment in the hearing process. So then the hearing process will not lead to the ability to then do kirtan. Kirtan here means speaking harikatha, because I really have not heard, I really have not digested. So at best I can do regurgitation of something that maybe was spoken here and there, but I don't have artham of it. What to speak of any realization of it? You understand? So, to make intentional practice, the first thing is questions, unceasing questions. What is this? How is this? That also helps others, because when you make an inquiry to somebody, what they don't know, they're forced to ask questions to get the answers to it. This is the process of Shravan and Kirtan. It's throughout the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, as I mentioned earlier. So once there is artham, then again, there can be contemplation of that meaning. Once this contemplation starts, it becomes a meditation. And bhakti practice actually begins at the point of dhyan, or meditation. You understand? Just like, even with sense gratification. How does sense gratification happen? You see the progressive, it's called a crumb, like a sequence. Dhyayato vishayam pumsam sangaste shupajayate sangat sanjayate kama krodat vijayate krodat bhavati samaha samahat smriti vibrama. There's a whole sequence of how sense gratification becomes actualized. It begins with what? Dhyayato vishaya pumsam. When anyone will meditate on a particular object of sense gratification. Dhyayato vishayam pumsam. Sangha seshu vijay. They will then develop sangha with that thing. Sangha is the stage of contemplation, associating with it, emotionally and mentally. And then, Jayata Vishayam Pumsam Sangaste Shubhadayate. Sangat Sanjayate, calm. Then real desire for that thing emerges. The same thing happens in Bhakti. Dhyayato, Harikatha, Dhyayato, meaning of Harinam, Dhyayato, meaning of all the practices like Mangalarati, Tulsi Parikrama, Srimad Bhagavatam, all Dhyayato, these things that will produce Sangha, real Sangha with these things, like it's described in the third canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. Sata Prasanga, Mamaviya Samvido. Prasanga means this. When the emotional content is there, and the sadhu who's speaking is also qualified sadhu, then prasanga takes place. It means full, actual association. That will give rise, my Guru Pada Padma, all of our acharyas have mentioned, hearing that Harikatha will give rise to greed. So this is calm. What is this calm? Calm here does not mean material lust. Calm here means the desire for a particular aspirational goal in bhakti. Because when you hear the Harikatha, then a ruchi is established in the chitta. That taste is what you want to grow. When Mahaprabhu told to Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, excuse me, Malikana se bija ropan shravanam kirtale kariye shekon. You should plant the seed of bhakti. No, Sanatana 6, I'm sorry. You should plant the seed of bhakti, right? And then water it by hearing and chanting. What is this seed? This seed is the gana samskar of a particular ruchi for service to Krishna. By hearing Harikatha, the seed of that ruchi begins to sprout through faith, sadhu sangha, then bhajan, and then the kriya shakti of Swarup Shakti coming because of the practice of bhajan. It removes anarthas. It creates steadiness in the chitta. When steadiness in the chitta comes, it allows the ruchi inherent in the practice to manifest, increasing the devotion in practice. That gives rise to attachment to the object for what you're practicing or your goal, right? That is called a shakti. In the stage of a shakti, the clarification of that ruchi becomes manifest to the sadhaka. And then when Swarup Shakti descends, it crystallizes that ruchi and presents the Swarup of the jiva. Understand? So without this beginning thing, artam, leading to contemplation, right, or meaning leading to contemplation, then leading to meditation, none of these things will arise. So the actual practice of bhakti will start really at the point of dhyan. That means my all endeavors in bhakti, from Harinam, hearing Harikatha, performing Mangalarti, Thakurji Seva, cooking offerings, everything will be a meditation. And in that meditation, there will be emotional investment. The source of that emotional investment will be an abhilas. The abhilas that I am allowed to have. What abhilas is that? Abhilas for a particular kind of seva to Krishna. Because as your bhajan matures and you're hearing Harikatha, then a particular seva abhilas based on that ruchi begins to manifest. And then when you hear your Diksha mantras from Gurudev, that time resonance with the mantras comes about. And the clarity of that ruchi which has been with you through many, many lifetimes in the form of bhakti samskars. Praptanaka aduni chasti yasat bhakti vasana. All of those samskars from previous lives in bhakti, they coming into maturation. When you hear the Diksha mantras, then Vise Sambandha Gyan, based on that ruchi or that abhilas, then becomes crystallized. And first as artam, as meaning. Because for many devotees, you go to the festival, I took first and second initiation, maybe spaced apart, and when I got my Diksha mantras, I heard the mantras, I got a sheet of paper, and I've just been chanting them duty bound for years and years and years. But then if you're asked, well, what is the mantra? What is Brahm Gayatri? Or what is Guru Mantra, Guru Gayatri? And you're not clear, then how are you actually investing emotionally in the mantra? How are you doing dhyan of the mantra? And in the mantra is telling you to do dhimahi means dhyan. If you don't have understanding of the mantra, how can you dhimahi the mantra? So to make practice intentional is very important. And the way to do that is to have discussion. Preferably to go to senior devotees those sadhus in whom you have faith, who have some true understanding, have some realization, and sit and make inquiry after inquiry until they fall asleep. I was traveling for Harikatha one time, and we had a pretty long drive. And we got to one place. This is such a wonderful Sangha, this place. This was in Ypsilanti. I can go ahead and say where it was. It was in Ypsilanti. And one devotee there, Deva Madhava, I'm always so inspired by that whole Sangha. And just how they put themselves together, and Deva Madhava's leadership and everything, and his good wife, and all the other devotees helping. And it's just like amazing. So I would encourage any preachers to visit there. Of course, check with him. But it's just so amazing. Anyway, we came the very last time I was there. And so I came. I'm always so excited for sharing our Guru Bhagav's Harikatha there. So I was sharing Harikatha, and we're very tired. I'm traveling with two other devotees, and we're really like tired from the drive, everything. And so then we give Harikatha maybe almost an hour and a half to 2 hours, right? Because I know all these devotees. Also, these devotees are very learned. They all study. They're all very serious. So then after that, we say, okay, questions, right? So it's almost like some devotees, they took prasadam and came right back, and their circle formed. First, the circle was a little small. People who didn't get a chance to have their question answered. Circle grew bigger and grew bigger, till the whole same audience was back again, and now the question and answer session went on for another 2 hours and change. So, it showed that there was a thirst to ask every single question to get more and more clarity, because people wanted to do intentional practice. You understand? So it was really, really wonderful. And then we had the most wonderful prasadam. And in this case, it was really simple prasadam, but we had been traveling. I don't want to get off course here, but we've been traveling, and in some places, obviously, feasts are taking place and opulent prasadam, but here it was just so simple, and it was so wonderful. So wonderful. That happened twice to us. Again, I don't want to get off track onto prasadam, but we also arrived in Columbus, Ohio, and we were doing a program there. And the first day that we arrived, they made such a simple prasadam, but it was so amazing. So I've often been very fond of traveling and having more simple arrangements for prasadam, because first of all, you feel better. It's also better for our health, probably, no doubt, and everything else. But anyway, my point was, these devotees, they just hours of hearing and chanting. That also, for whoever is sharing the Harikatha, for their edification, it also is intentional practice of bhakti, because you have to then, based on what you've yourself realized, you have to speak. And whatever you've not actually understood or realized, then you should always make deference. Oh, we'll have to inquire from any senior Vaishnava, or check with Guru Sadhu Sastra. Right? Because if any abhiman comes in, oh, I'm a great Harikatha speaker, and you try to answer something and you're answering wrong, then you're not doing service anymore. So again, bhakti is abandoned. You understand? So always we have to speak only what we've truly understood or truly realized, and be open to being corrected. Because maybe something we thought we understood, if Guru Sadhu Sastra, when that conception is vetted, proves differently, oh, we have to be willing and humble. Oh, okay, because that's how growth in bhakti takes place. So both the hearer and the speaker, who is Shrota and who's the Kirtaniya, means the speaker and the hearer, all are benefit in this. All are benefited by it. So again, to make the practice intentional, there should be artam, understanding what it is we're doing. Secondly, from artam, there should be contemplation of the meaning. So even when a person is taking Harinam, I described the whole thing, I'm not re-describing it, but I described the unfoldment of maturation through Harinam. From understanding Harinam to be 32 syllables, all the way to understanding how it becomes 8 pairs of names. Those 8 pairs of names then become one name, Gauranga Mahaprabhu. I gave a talk before about this. So maybe you can go back and look at it, or you can reference it or something. But when you are doing Harinam, you can do your Harinam while contemplating the artam of Harikatha. Because Harikatha is the Swarup of Harinam. The form of Radha and Krishna present is Harinam. The Swarup of Radha and Krishna present as Srimad Bhagavatam and all Harikatha, all Sastra, everything. That is the Swarup of the Roop of Radha and Krishna. Right? Because it's mentioned, Tulya Bhagavata Krishna Vimu Sabasrai, Prati Shloke, Prati Akshare, Nana Artakai. Krishna's very form is Srimad Bhagavatam. You understand? So from this artam will come contemplation. So while you're taking Harinam, oh, what Guru Dev spoke the other day, what my Guru Parapadma mentioned in this lecture, or what was written here in this particular verse, and contemplating that. That is associating with Nam in a proper way. In the very beginning, because there's no substance of sastra or anything present, because people have not heard, then the emphasis is given to just hearing the sound. Because then Radha and Krishna are present in the sound vibration. In Shabda, their presence is also there. But gradually, my Guru Parapadma told, to grow in understanding of Radha and Krishna, you have to understand their swarups. So Guru Dev and all sadhus, they're speaking the swarup of Radha Krishna Mahaprabhu. You understand? So hearing those things and contemplating them while chanting Harinam, then your Harinam becomes so much more tasteful. You understand? So then artam, and from this contemplation, eventually through the understanding, a dhyan will take place, a meditation. And then in that meditation, the nature of the rasa samagri means the ingredients of the rasa, which is inherent in that practice, it will come to you on your chitta, and that is the beginning of the stage of ruchi. Understand? In the bhajan, the reciprocation of the inherent taste in the meditation comes into the chitta. So while you're chanting, Harinam becomes so tasteful. You understand? And again, this is all based only in one abhilas. The abhilas to develop in full the ruchi for a particular type of seva to Krishna. Understand? Alright, so hopefully this was somewhat helpful. It was based on an older question actually. But also while I was traveling, I would tend to, depending on the audience, speak on this, always in speaking for my own edification. Because if I reiterate these things by doing this, I'm also speaking to myself. So therefore I can't get up and then go and do an arti and not have intentionality. I always keep saying the wrong word. Being intentional about it. So everything we do should be done with intention. Right? So I should understand, what is the arti? What is the meaning of the offering of the various ingredients? Then contemplating them, it will become a dhyan. Then our Guru Dev has spoken, one should think that when you're offering the giwik, the remembrance, smaran will come. How Mother Yashoda, how she would come in the morning, she would take the giwik and look at the body of Krishna, and she would observe there's some scratches there, and she would think, these suckers, you're playing too roughly with Krishna. You should know, Krishna's skin is so soft, like butter. You should be very careful. And Baladev, you should be mindful to make them very cautious. Then Madhu Manga will tell, Maya, these things are not coming from us. They are coming from, and then Krishna will go like this, keep your mouth closed. And Subal will put his hand over the mouth of Madhu Manga. So from this you can get any hint what is happening. So this is how to do practice. And then that practice will reciprocate and refresh so that you're always in a state of utsav. Because Rupa Goswami told, Utsaha Nishaya Dharyat. How will you stay in a state of festive enthusiasm? By having the reciprocation of these moods and these understandings and these realizations coming. This creates enthusiasm in the practice. And then, not to try to impose on the practice, which will be sahajavad, then, Utsaha Nishaya Dharyat. Patience and confidence is there. Nishchad, it will happen. Just don't try to impose on it. Don't try to force it to happen by your intelligence and your mind. Because that is called kalpana. And kalpana leads to kaitava. Kalpana means imagination, kaitava means cheating. So then I'll try to impose some artificial status on my understanding and my meditation. And rather than getting a good result, we'll get an adverse effect. Right? Which is coming from the feature of being influenced by prakriti sahajavad. Understand? Alright, my Dandavat Pranam devotees, Vancha Kalpaturvisha Kripa Shindavevacha, Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Radhe Radhe.